All right, let's talk pre-draft visits. It's been a very busy week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Just cornerback wise, they have brought in Joey Porter Jr. yesterday. Before that, it was Emmanuel Forbes. Tyreek Stevenson out of Miami is also scheduled, and Julius Brents is also scheduled. That is just this week alone, I believe. Last week, Keely Ringo's name was popped in there, maybe the week before that. On top of that, the list is long. At this point, the list is very long of guys that they have brought in, but noticeable ones that have come up recently. Jonathan Mingo out of Ole Miss, bigger guy, mid-round pick. Dwan Jones obviously has been on this. Osiris Torrance out of Florida, that's a name to watch. Steve Avila, am I saying that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Out of TCU. John Michael Schmitz out of Minnesota. Cody Mock out of North Dakota State has entered the conversation. And then just before we jumped on today, Keanu Benton adds his name to the list as well. I mean, busy week. Does it give you any direction? Like when you hear any of this, do you say, oh, cool? Or are you just more lost trying to put the puzzle together?
Yeah, still a heavy focus, in the areas that we've kind of seen them focus on so far. The trenches, defensive line, offensive line. I know Cody Mock was reported as well today, I believe. So that's another name. He's a guy that played tackle at North Dakota, but he's going to end up probably, I would imagine, going to guard at the next level. So, I mean, I think it's really interesting that, they're prioritizing, at least with their visits, the trenches. Still a heavy interest in cornerbacks. I know they've had Emmanuel Forbes in there for a top 30, I believe. You mentioned Keely Ringo. They've shown him a ton of interest throughout the process as well. So, Julius Brents, another Senior Bowl guy. He's a player who I think has, I'm not sure if I know we often use the phrase like helped their stock. But I think sometimes it's just like the consensus catching up to the league. But he's a player that, I feel like I was getting pictures of mock drafts sent to me all the time of people drafting him with like a 4th round pick. And now, he's getting legitimate like top 50 buzz. Like I've seen him as recently as like yesterday mocked at like 35. So definitely an interesting player. A lot of interesting names. I think the least surprising thing to me is their interest in Benton and Gervon Dexter from Florida. Like those two guys, like I tweeted this out yesterday, the day before, but like I just feel like very, very confident that one of those two players is going to be a Steeler come draft weekend. Like I would be really surprised like if neither of them ended up Steelers. Like those are my flag plant guesses, I feel like, as of right now.
Okay, so explain both of those guys to me, because they're both, in my eyes, defensive ends, pretty true-blooded defensive ends. But the Steelers don't necessarily need a defensive end.
Yeah. So for me, Dexter is a toolsy interior defensive lineman. He has pretty much no pass rush plan right now. He's literally just coasting on all athletic tools.
Cool.
He's an athletic dude. He can really move, but he's really just coasting on like pure strength. And then like when his motor's running, like you see him make an impact. Benton is a different player. He has played a lot of nose at Wisconsin, but like I'm not really sure that he's going to be a nose at the next level. I think he may be better as like a 3 tech. I know people that I like trust and talk to or have talked to like since the fall seem to be split on that, whether like, he should be a nose or a 3 tech. In terms of the Steelers, I just think both of them fit like kind of what they look for. Benton is a better player like right now. He's a pretty solid run defender. Dexter has all the tools in the world, but he's just kind of this moldable ball of clay who probably isn't going to make a significant impact as a rookie just because he's raw. But I think when you look at defensive linemen like this, like you gotta I know they brought back Larry Ogunjobi. That 3-year deal definitely signals that they believe he's going to be a big part of this defense moving forward. But, Cam Hayward's getting up there in age. Like he's only going to be able to defy, father time for so long. And like at some point you're going to have to make a significant investment, a 2nd round pick or something like that to kind of replenish the cupboard. That way, when, Hayward steps away, like you're not left, just high and dry to where, you got to overspend in free agency or you back yourself in a corner that year in the NFL draft where you have to feel like you pick a certain position at a certain spot. So
do you think these guys are that early? Like I thought Dexter was like a 4th round pick, maybe a 3rd.
He's gonna go I'd be pretty surprised if he got out of like the top like 65, 75 picks, but
Okay.
it wouldn't surprise me if he went as early as like
49.
early second round. Like,
Early second
yeah,
round.
just because guys with his size, speed, power kind of combination, like defensive line coaches are going to want to get their hands on him. Like
Okay.
he's really raw, but like all the tools are there for him to be a really impactful player at the next level. He didn't take the step this past year at Florida that I think a lot of people, were anticipating, including me. But I still think that there's significant upside there. And then Benton, he's a guy who I think, same kind of range, but for different reasons. I just think he's a better player right now. But maybe doesn't offer like the same type of floor just because he's not the same athlete.
Gotcha. Okay. Okay. I could see that. Good to keep in mind. I my mock draft came out on Tuesday. Didn't have a defensive tackle until 80,
Hmm.
I believe. I just, a defensive end, that one's going to get me. But I did have Dexter in my draft originally, but it was later. It was like 120 or something. So I didn't see that he'd be that high. That was
Yeah.
before the NFL Combine, obviously. But I like the moves. I like Keanu Benton. From what I saw at the Senior Bowl, dude's a stud. Dexter didn't really do anything. I didn't watch any of his tape. I just know that he got in some trouble. And I talked to somebody at the NFL Combine who literally told me that this guy is the best athlete in the draft, and everybody knows it except for the public. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I think it's a nice proposition for either one of those guys to end up with the Steelers. I think it makes all the sense in the world, and they showed them like a significant amount of interest. Obviously, Bent was at the Senior Bowl. I thought at the Senior Bowl, like he showed that he, some of those improvements as a pass rusher. He really worked on his hands. I feel like in the offseason, and I saw some improvement this year at Wisconsin. But they met with Benton at the Senior Bowl. They met with both of them formally at the Combine. Both of those guys had top 30 visits. I just think there's a lot of smoke there. There's definitely interest in those two players for sure.
All right. So last pre-draft visit I want to talk about, and then we'll do the mock draft here real quick. Jonathan Mingo, big body. Omar Khan said the day that the news came out of his pre-draft visit, I believe, that they're still looking for a slot receiver, that they want, quote unquote, their type of slot receiver. I think we could all assume that means a big bodied guy. Is he like the option for big body guys? I don't agree that they should go get a big body guy. I think that they should adapt to what the NFL is. And the NFL is a very fast game with very fast athletes, including very fast wide receivers. And the Steelers don't have any of those except for Calvin Austin. I think that should be their direction. But do you think Jonathan Mingo is the Steelers type of slot receiver that they're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, just trying to piece together what that could potentially mean is
Yeah.
interesting because, they've played different guys in the slot. Just
Yeah.
under Matt Canada, they haven't had any type of impact out of that position. So it'll be interesting to see who they pick because, it'll give us a clue on how they want that position to look next season, which is going to definitely be different. Mingo's an interesting player. He's played outside and inside. Really big dude, and a pretty. I think he's a pretty solid route runner for like his size. Not like breakaway speed, but he did create like they were able to kind of scheme up some explosives for him. He was a guy that I feel like Ole Miss fans and like college football fans were kind of waiting on to break out. And he, finally did. I feel like he had the best year of his career. I'm pretty sure statistically this past season. So, interesting player. I do think he's probably like a power slot. I watched a couple games just after excuse me, my alarm, just after they, announced that visit. And, it's nice to have those like power slots to where you can throw screens and stuff to the outside to the perimeter. And like, he's a capable blocker from what I saw, which I liked that. It's just a different type of skill set, I feel like, than, somebody that they have had, in recent years.
Yeah. Yeah. But at the same time, I mean, yes, I agree with the skill set. The physique, I think that they've been trying to with the Juju and the Chase Claypool, and it just hasn't worked out, and they've been stuck with these other options. So I thought that just connecting the dots there in one day, thought that was very interesting. Saw that he played a little bit of off ball tight end on your Twitter. That was pretty cool too.
Yeah, they were doing some some funny kind of stuff with him. It was pretty interesting. I think it's always Kiffin's offenses. Um,
Dude,
it's
always
like a
something.
it's a masterpiece of just disasters, like kind of how I describe it. They also met with Charlie Jones. He's another
Yes.
guy. Really older prospect. He's gonna be a 25-year-old rookie. But he kind of finally broke out last year. He's moved around. Started out his career at Buffalo or Iowa, one or the other, and then went to Purdue this past season and just blew the heck up. He, I watched. I don't think I've watched any tape on him necessarily. I know I've seen him on tape, but I wasn't watching him. But I watched him a bunch live this year, and he gave it to some really good corners. I remember like he was giving Garrett Williams trouble. I know I watched the Penn State game of when I was studying Joey Porter Jr. He had a bunch of good plays in that game too. So he gave some really good corners, some fits this past season. He was ultra productive, and even though he's only like 5'11", I think 175, 180 pounds, like
Yeah.
he was a contested catch machine, especially like on back shoulder throws on the sideline. So he's going to be a day 3 guy just because of his age, and there's probably not significant upside there, but like he's a guy that I think he's gonna make a roster. Um,
I think that the
Interesting.
Steelers could double dip at wide receiver. I think that it's very much so a possibility if they don't sign anybody else, just as an excuse to move on from some of the guys that they have now. So that's a name to watch.